Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for this Feel Good Friday event. We are really excited to have Marla Pelletier with us of Inward Office. My name is Sarah Norton. I'm a member of the wellness team here at Gatehouse Media, and I am just very excited that we're able to offer this webinar today. Very quickly, just a little housekeeping. All of you are going to be in listen-only mode. In the right-hand side of your screen, there is a section where you can ask questions. So while Marla is doing her presentation, I will be kind of taking a look at any questions that might be coming in. And hopefully, if we get a chance to answer questions at the end, we will. And if not, we will definitely make sure we're following up with Marla to get some information for you. So without further ado, I'm going to say again, welcome to Stress, Reactivity, and Resilience. Marla Pelletier is our presenter today, and she is the president of Inward Office in Rochester, New York. And this is a company that teaches mindfulness, yoga, and fitness classes at organizations. And this organization was established in 2006. And basically, the goal is to be able to give hands-on technique for people to be able to manage physical and mental stress through various delivery of workshops and activities. She is a certified yoga instructor, a mindfulness meditation teacher, a mindful eating instructor, and specializes in yoga and anxiety and depression in veterans and yoga, Nidra. All right, excellent. She is also a wonderful wife, mother, sister, daughter, leader, and friend. So we are really happy to have her with us. And with that, I am going to stop talking and pass it over to Marla.
Hi everyone. The reason, too, I put that mother, wife, daughter, leader, and Sarah added friend to that is what we're going to talk about today is life tested. There's a theoretical aspect, but there's also when you put some of these theories to work in your own life, you'll see some, real feedback, real lifetime feedback. And if I told you my life story, you might be convinced without trying it. It's an important, three-dimensional way to look at life. So I want to start off getting us into a relaxed space with 5 straw breaths. Straw breathing is one way to slow down your exhalation, and slowing down your breathing pattern and your exhalation naturally slows down the sympathetic nervous system response, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but it gets you into a more open and receptive, ready to learn position. So if you can place your feet flat on the floor, or if you're like me, I'm sitting cross-legged in this chair. This chair is nice and wide, but sitting with the feet flat on the floor is perfectly good too. Upright posture and eyes closed if you feel comfortable. And we're going to inhale through the nose and exhale through a mouth position as though you're breathing in, taking liquid in and out through a straw. We're going to exhale through a small aperture of the lips. So inhale all together, exhale through the lips. And what you really want to do is try to slow down your exhalation here. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the lips. And again. And then just for a moment here, notice any smells around you. Notice any sounds. Notice any lingering tastes in the mouth. Notice the play of light and dark behind the eyelids. And then notice the felt sense of sitting in the chair you're sitting in. And And take another deeper breath. And slowly open the eyes. So you may feel a little different after doing that. And so today we're talking about the stress reactivity cycle and how to create resilience when you're faced with a trigger. And stress is really the first area where scientists were able to prove that there is a mind-body connection. They were able to extract blood in real time when someone was experiencing stress to see that before experiencing stress and during the experience of stress, that there was a release of hormones, of adrenaline, of epinephrine, of cortisol. And so stress really is on the cutting edge of mind-body science. And this whole stress reactivity has, what we're assuming is that you can be able to point out a trigger. For many of us, too, we may be experiencing chronic stress. And chronic stress is one of those times when we can't identify a trigger. It might mean we're in a period of time where we're hyper-aroused, where we can't find one particular thing that's stressing us out or causing us to go into the hyper-aroused state. And I do recommend, if you're feeling chronic stress, that's definitely when you need to go see a doctor or a therapist or get medical help. But in our talk today, we're really going to be talking about when you know that you have a trigger. Okay? So Sarah, if you don't mind changing the slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is my little drawing of our stress reactivity cycle. We're going to go part by part through each of these, the triangle and the square. But our real goal is to interrupt the stress cycle. At any of those transitions or any of those periods of time where we're experiencing a trigger event or experiencing the body's reaction, we can create an interruption using a specific technique. And a lot of it is even just knowing, getting the knowledge about what's going on just underneath the surface. So you may right now just think of not very intense, but a mild trigger that you experience on a regular basis. So for me, it might be a tantruming child. I just took my kids to Wegmans, which is our local grocery store, last night, and my son did not like that I chose out the Wegmans brand Oreos. It was supposed to be a treat, and he decided to stand up in the cart and scream that they were the real Oreos. Mind you, I didn't even know that he knew the difference. But that, tantruming child, that was a trigger for me. So I had to work really hard to not be the mom that's screaming right back at a 5-year-old tantruming. You might have a, squeaky wheel client, somebody that every time they call, your heart starts to race and your palms start to sweat. You might have the yearly review, and every time that comes up, you begin to not sleep the night before. So think about one of those mild triggers that you maybe that you can play around with throughout our talk today. Okay, so we'll come back to looking at the cycle later on. So we're going to go part by part through it. So if you can change the slide. Oh, back slide, yeah. All right. So here we're assuming that first we start with a trigger. And a trigger may cause us stress, right? Trigger doesn't have to, but in this situation we're talking about the stress reactivity, it causes us stress. And so there's two kinds of stress. There's distress, so the negative form of stress, and then there's eustress, the positive version of stress. And the difference between distress and eustress, the positive and the negative, is really only our belief. Okay, it's only our perception of it. But here we're defining stress as a high-demand situation. And this high-demand situation requires an adjustment, a change, or a response to remain in balance. So just think about that for one moment. It's just a high-demand situation. Okay, and so it can be perceived as negative or positive. We have the negative forms of stress that what science has found has negatively impacted our health, or it can be a positive form of stress where maybe we're excited about a challenge or excited about a new opportunity, a new job. Maybe you've got that promotion or that new job, and there's a certain amount of stress, but maybe it's enjoyable stress because it's something that you've wanted. And so sometimes this negative form of stress is feeling like your perceived resources can't meet the demands of the situation. Okay, and those resources can be either internal or external. Okay, so internal resources might be intelligence, willpower. Willpower might come up with food-related things. Strength, right? If you're dealing with maybe an illness of a loved one. Strength, compassion, patience. My example, because I always pull out real life examples. Sometimes I don't feel like I have enough patience to bring my kids to Target. I've got 4 kids, all under 9, and sometimes I'm like, I gotta go to Target, and I'm like, nope, don't have the patience for bringing all of them. That's an internal resource. An external resource, typically what we often think about, might be time, money, people, clothes. So an example of this might be your car is got something wrong with it, and you think, oh, I don't have enough money for this repair. So since everyone doesn't have $1 million tucked under their chair today, for me to help you with the external resource side, we're going to only talk about the internal resource side. So I just want to see. Yep. So something else just to mention here about the perception of stress as positive or negative. There's a lot of stress research out there that have been saying for years and years, stress is negative, and that's the message that we've been sent. But there was a study done in 1998. There were 30,000 people that were surveyed, and the researchers asked, do you have high stress or low stress? And do you perceive the stress as negative, toxic, and will it impact your health, or do you see it as a challenge? Do you see stress as challenge, more of in a positive light? And so 8 years later, they looked at who had died. So they were looking for direct correlation between mortality and stress. And what they found was if the person perceived that they had high stress and the belief that it was toxic, or if they had low stress and the belief that it was toxic, they died at a faster rate than all the people that believed that stress was positive. So there's a very strong, again, mind-body correlation between stress and our perception and how it interacts in our body. Okay? So one of the things that I think is useful about you being here is that sometimes when we feel like we have control over something or we have more knowledge of it, we might feel more positive about the situation. So knowing that you can be in control of your stress may help you from dying an early death. That's really morose, but the lady that I was, I didn't put her in the resources, but Dr. Kelly McGonigal, she's out of UCLA. She was one of those psychologists, stress researchers, who was touting for years and years and years, stress is bad, stress is negative, de-stress. And then she had to flip her story because of these, more recent studies that say, nope, it's all about your perception. So good to know. So, okay, in our trigger slide here too, one of the solutions that you can use for interrupting the stress reactivity cycle at the trigger time is, well, I'll first say the breathing meditation. The breathing meditation you can find on the YouTube site. We're going to plug that a few times today, but on the Simply Good Life YouTube site, you'll find 5 videos of me doing different exercises. And each of them have specific applications, but really we put 5 up there because one's going to stick better, one's going to work better for you. So this one, if you're feeling like you can change something at the point of trigger, I would suggest trying the breathing meditation. Now the other one is 10 perspectives. And I'll use again, for example, in my life. One of the things that's triggering to me is dealing with real estate. So I think I told you about this, Sarah. So my husband purchased an apartment building years ago, and somehow over the years I've become the manager of it. And every time a person doesn't pay their rent or has an issue, it is a trigger for me. And I'm very, very aware that it's a trigger for me. And so an exercise that I've done, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Breathing works way better. One exercise I've done is the 10 perspectives. And 10 perspectives is literally writing on one side of your sheet 10 different voices, okay? And so for me, it might be my husband, my accountant, my mom, my son, and then I have their versions of the story. You know, my husband and my accountant might say something like, it's a good investment, it'll grow our wealth, it'll, you know, it looks good on paper for, you know, on the budget. If it's my son, it might be, Mom gets grumpy every time somebody calls. So it's all the different perspectives you could imagine. You know, you could come up with people in your life, like I said, accountant, husband, child, or you could, you know, have a situation where you think of, what would a clown say? What would a magician say? What would the cashier say? So it could be anybody, but it's a way of brainstorming. And so when we brainstorm in this way, we kind of exert our creativity. We move from survival mode into a creative problem-solving mentality, and that's using a more a higher, advanced, more recent part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. And so the 10 perspectives obviously isn't something you can do in the moment of somebody, like as soon as a client calls or a renter calls me and is upset about something, I'm not going to sit there and write the perspective. But, you know, when you take a step back and kind of say, oh, I'm getting stuck in this reactive cycle every time somebody calls, I'm going to spend some time dealing with it, right? I'm going to change my relationship to this problem. The 10 perspectives is something you can do with some comfortable space, okay? Breathing meditation is something you can do more in the moment of stress. So while the renter is on the phone, I can say, all right, I'm going to deep breathe while they're yelling. You know, that is something you can do everywhere. Okay, and as Sarah mentioned, feel free to write questions, comments in your little sidebar, and I really will be happy to chat about whatever comes up. All right, next slide. All right, so the next part, the next step in our reactivity cycle is the body's reaction. And so on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, we may not be knowledgeable about the tension that we're holding in our body. And we might have a dominant area where we hold tension. So common places, neck and shoulder, right? So you hike your shoulders up to your ears, lower back, hips. So gaining an understanding of what your body's natural tendencies are, their tendencies when they're under stress, and their ability to relax, kind of those on a gradient, is really important for knowing how to interrupt the body reaction. So clenching and tightening can happen just under the radar. And really getting in touch with your body's reaction, areas of tension, is really apparent when you practice relaxation. Okay, so the next little point, relaxation training and exercise can train us to be more in tune with the body. Okay, so in our Simply Good Life YouTube page, there's a body awareness exercise. And the very simple version of this is you literally go part by part through the body. You pay attention to the fingers, the hands, the lower arm, the elbow, and you go part by part through the whole body, simply becoming aware of your body parts. So then in a moment of tension, I might notice, oh, I'm going to use this renter calling again. This renter's calling and my shoulders suddenly are really, really tense. Okay, and then in this cycle, in the stress reactivity, I might be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a couple breaths, I'm going to notice my shoulders are tense, and I'm going to try to drop them. Okay, and the ancient yogis, I mean, I'm a yoga instructor, a lot of my knowledge comes from what they said in ancient India based on yogic science, but now is being proven by neuroscience and by Western studies, is that often we're reacting to what our body is doing. So our body is tightening and is clenching, and our reaction is going on to what's going on in our body. So if we can stop at the body tension state, we may be able to change our reaction into a more conscious decision. And so this little quote under here, unawareness. So if we're unaware of our body tension, our body relaxation, it leads to disconnection. And many of us are really disconnected from our body. And disconnection leads to imbalance. And that may be the imbalance in your reaction to stress or the trigger. It might be imbalance health-wise. And so just being able to tune in to where we get tense, what our body's natural inclination is to absorb tension physically is really useful. And it's a way to impact the stress cycle. Okay, so the next slide.
Sorry, my mouse is now giving me stress. There we go.
Okay, so we got some more cavemen here. So the third and the fourth step are really about the nervous system's response. So the third and fourth step were the message to the brain and the hormone cascade. So we got the trigger, and we got the body tensing, and then the sympathetic nervous system turns on. So so you understand a little bit about the nervous system. The control center for the nervous system is the brain. Then we've got the spine, and then we've got all the nerves that head out to all parts of the body. Within the brain is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the survival mechanism within yourself that we commonly know as fight, flight, and freeze. Okay, and in modern day, fight, flight, and freeze translates into aggression. Okay, you might have a tendency towards one of these. Fight turns into aggression, flee turns into helplessness, and flight is anxiety. Okay, so did I write that up there? Yep, modern day translation is aggression, anxiety, and helplessness. So when the sympathetic nervous system turns on and we get that hormone cascade of cortisol, of adrenaline, epinephrine, all of those hormones that begin, that's brought on by the sympathetic nervous system, the brain even asking, is it dangerous here? And what resources do I have to cope? Now, when we're talking about our ancestors, those cavemen in that slide, this was extremely useful, right? If you were standing somewhere, predators are everywhere, you hear some rustling in the bush, and due to natural selection, if you heard rustling in the bush and you did nothing about it, you might be offed. If you heard the rustling in the bush and you assumed that it was a predator, well then, the sympathetic nervous system turns on, the blood goes out to the fingers and the legs, you get ready to flee, you get ready to fight, or you get ready to be really, really still so they don't come out. And that was really, really useful then, right? We were under mortal threat when there were predators around. And this part of the brain isn't going away. It's deep, deep inside of our brain. And, if we have a zombie apocalypse, I want that part of my brain to still be there. You like zombies, right? Is that why it popped in my brain? Sorry. And so having that ability to fight, flight, and freeze is obviously essential to us, but in modern day, when we're going in for a performance review, when we're showing up for a client and nervous about our presentation, whatever it is, we're not under mortal threat, although we may have the perception that we are. And so getting into a state where we're in fight, flight, or freeze in our modern day, where we're not scavenging for food, where we're not seeing tigers and predators all around us, is a little less useful. It's a little less useful than back in the day. So if we want to pull ourselves out of this survival mechanism, if we want to turn off the sympathetic nervous system, then we can interrupt the stress cycle here. We want to move into the higher brain, into the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex, which is, I say the higher brain, is the more modern, recent part of the brain that's developed. And it's really where our self-regulation, our executive decision-making, and creative problem-solving, that's where they all live, is in the prefrontal cortex. The other thing worth mentioning here is the negativity bias. Although, you know what, I think I want to mention it in a couple of slides. But just know this, that we hold on to negative experiences more strongly than we hold on to good experiences. So if I ask you to think of 3 negative things right now, they'll probably pop in your brain right away. If I ask you to think about 3 positive things, it might take you a little bit longer. Okay? So we will talk about interrupting the nervous system response and a solution for that in just a moment. But one thing that I want to mention, and you can switch the slide, is the SCARF model. So when looking at human behavior and human social needs, there was a study done by Dr. David Rock in 2008, and he asked the question, what influences behavior? And this really closely relates to our fight, flight, and freeze mechanism and what makes it turn on, what makes it activated. And when some of these things, in the SCARF little acronym, when some of these things are threatened, when this is the aspect of us that is put into danger or into question, it is often what causes that fight, flight, and freeze to turn on. Okay, so just looking at them really quickly. As a status, so you're, important. Sorry guys, there's a gross mistake there, but your importance in relation to others. So status might be, your job, right? If you're going to lose your job or be demoted, that's a change in your status. That's naturally threatening. Your certainty, your ability to predict the future. You go out to your car in the morning and you have a flat tire, but you had to make it to a meeting. It's going to threaten your status. So, these things all interplay. Autonomy, your sense of control over events. My daughter has a disease where she breaks bones easily. So I want to have control over it and create a medical, team that's going to help her, but I have no control over that. I have no autonomy over this. Okay? Relatedness, your safety with others. And that might be how you exist on a team in your job. Fairness, your perception of equal exchange. If someone in your same position makes more than you, that may not be fair, and that threatens your equilibrium so that you enter into that fight, flight, or freeze. So the interesting thing about this is, so this is a recent study, but a lot of these points were actually in ancient texts written in India by what they call, by yogis, by these men that lived up in the Himalayas and meditated all day. And this is one of the points. We naturally crave minimizing threats and maximizing rewards. Okay? So proven in 2008, but written about in 2000 BC. It's pretty neat. Okay? So when you're feeling threatened, that ability to make decisions, to collaborate with others and solve problems is severely decreased. Okay, so I highly recommend, he has a couple books out. This is just a neat thing. Coaches use this, psychologists use this model. It's a really neat theory. Okay, so then we can go to the next one. So the last point of this, and that creates the cycle of the stress reactivity, is that the present experience is reinforced by the past. I'm sure that you have that person that you think, oh, this is the way they are, and they're always going to be that way, or you have an experience where many times it's been the same negative experience, so when it comes up again, you go, oh, that's the way it's going to be. So, like I mentioned, we have a strong negativity bias. We really hold on tightly to the negative experience, the threatening, the dangerous experience, and that is our survival mechanism. That's, I'm not sure if anyone's seen The Cruise, but it's a kids movie. Have any of you guys seen it, The Cruise? So that is a really great example of the negativity bias and fight, flight, and freeze in action. If you have kids, get The Cruise and then just at least see the beginning, because really they say like they're like the last remaining cavemen or something, and the only reason is because the dad is so fearful. Like everything is a threat to him, and he's always, keeping his kids and family like in hiding. But this negativity bias, they say, still exists in us because it was our survival mechanism. If we assume that the rustling in the bush is a tiger, we're going to live. If we're happy-go-lucky and say, oh, it's nothing, it's not a big deal, well, then we're going to die. So underneath it all, the sympathetic nervous system is trying to preserve us. It's trying to keep us alive, not, stay away from threats, minimize threats. Okay, and so So the stress reactivity continues in a self-perpetuating cycle because the present experience is reinforced by the past. Our body continues to clench. Our nervous system continues to send out hormones, and it continues. And so here I put the solution as a mindfulness meditation. That's one of the Simply Good Life YouTube videos that we have. All of them are about 5 minutes long. But that's something you can do when you're not right in the middle of the stress reactivity cycle to make more choices, to pull yourself out more often, because you're noticing what's going on beneath the surface, right? We've got this unconscious and subconscious behavior that's going on with the stress reactivity cycle in our day-to-day and our patterns and our habits. And our patterns and our habits, those unconscious ones, are stored in that ancient part of the brain. But when we start to practice meditation, the breathing meditation, the body awareness, or the mindfulness meditation, we begin to notice more of the unconscious things going on, the internal chatter, the internal thoughts, and the emotions there. So, hold on just. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So I want you just to consider right now how you cope with stress. So I threw some pictures there. It might be eating, it might be exercise, maybe it's sleeping, talking or complaining to friends, being in nature, having alcohol, watching TV. Okay, so just consider it. Do you guys here want to share how you cope with stress?
I probably eat more than I should. Anybody on the want to add in on the chat? But yeah, I definitely think I eat more than I should.
Wine and Netflix. So one of those things that is worth considering now is if your stress management coping tool is actually helping you change your relationship to your stressor. Because the thing about it is the stressor, the situation, the event is always going to be there. You know, we don't have as much control over those outside things, but we have total control over ourselves and our perception and even the way our body works, right? That how much stress we're experiencing and if we're experiencing it as negative or positive. And so I want you to consider that maybe one of your coping tools is distraction. You're distracting yourself away from what's stressing you out, but then that trigger, that situation, that event, that person is still there, right? So every time that person shows up, every time that situation shows up, the stress appears. And so when we're suggesting, or when I'm suggesting over and over again to meditate or do breathing exercise or do body awareness, all of those have the ability to change what's going on inside. So that when that person shows up again, when that situation shows up again, you're not having the same reaction. Or even the same stress management tool that may be outdated. Right? How much does complaining to a friend really help? I mean, sometimes it helps in how you connect and how they offer solutions, but sometimes complaining just makes us feel worse. They say that there was a study done where the top 2 ways that we relieve stress at home is internet shopping and watching TV. I was like, internet shopping. That was surprising to me, but then I got on board with it because I remember there was one really stressful time in my life where I kept shopping for deals. I mean, I'm the type of person that puts 50 things in my Amazon cart and like never buys them, but the one in the cart, you know? So yeah, so a lot of these things are sensory distractions. We want to feel pleasure. We want to minimize pain. Okay, let's go back to the next slide. So this is our stress reactivity cycle. And we don't really want to turn it off. We want to be able to still have it, but we want it to show its head in more appropriate ways. Because as I mentioned, if we're in, I don't know, the wild, or there's a zombie apocalypse, we still want to have this survival mechanism. And it is the thing that, right, makes us slam our brakes when there's a traffic jam, and it's the thing that makes us stop from crossing the road if there's a car coming. But we want to be able to access our higher brain when necessary. Okay, so I'm going to suggest, and we'll do next slide, that mindfulness, which is a flavor or a way of experiencing life, is actually very useful for turning off the fight, flight, and freeze mechanism and being able to access the higher brain. And so mindfulness is simply paying attention in the present moment without judgment. So it's making that choice to fully pay attention to what's going on right now and not saying this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. Okay? It's not the judgment that's discerning, like, don't jump in that water out there. It doesn't look very good. If there's a pond right outside, a man-made pond, I'm assuming, right outside the window I'm looking at. So it's not the discerning one, but the one that says a brownie is bad. Okay? Inherently, a brownie is not bad. But if you're trying to change a habit, it might, for instance, eating brownies every night, maybe the brownie is not the thing you choose to do. Okay? You choose to eat. So mindfulness encourages an approach mentality. And an approach mentality is just actually looking at your problem rather than distracting yourself away from it. Okay? It's about engaging with the stressor, the activity, the situation, rather than turning away. Okay? Before that, sometimes we need this spaciousness, this resilience. Okay? And so a practice like meditation, an awareness practice like meditation, like yoga, like qigong, something that's strengthening the muscle of fully paying attention to what's going on right now, helps to strengthen it. So mindfulness is strengthened through the awareness exercises like meditation, and these help to cultivate resilience and the spaciousness to approach life with full awareness. Okay, so it's a little bit of a teaser for our next webinar because we'll go a little bit deeper. But I just want to say that most of us are used to mindlessness. Okay, so taking it the opposite way, mindlessness is like your drive to work. Right, you know exactly how to get there with your eyes closed. Right, and if you had to stop for milk on the way home, like you could just go right past the grocery store without even thinking about it because it is a set of train tracks that has one direction. Right, you get in the car, turn it on, and drive. And then the mind wanders, okay? That's a very natural way, mindlessness, that we go through life, right? Do you remember brushing your teeth this morning? Do you remember if you dressed before or after? Do you remember what the toothpaste tasted like when you're brushing, right? Those kind of habits are stored in the automatic, the ancient part of our brain, okay, where all of our patterns are held. But a time that we maybe feel mindfulness is when we're on vacation, okay? When we're on vacation, we're out of our routine. Maybe we're smelling and tasting food even more. Maybe we're not really concerned when our plans get canceled because we're on vacation. We don't care about traffic jams, but we care a lot about traffic jams when we're headed to work. Okay? So mindlessness, we're really used to. Flip it to the other side and fully pay attention. And that drive to work, you might be noticing the color of the car in front of you. You might be noticing the sounds that your car is making. You might be noticing the way your body feels in the seat. So you're paying attention to your experience with full attention. Full awareness with all your senses. And so next slide. So again, a little bit of this teaser here. The skills that we're developing in our practice, so in a meditation practice, when we strengthen the muscle of mindfulness, are these four. And these are just four that I chose in relation to the stress reactivity cycle. Okay, so beginner's mind. Mindfulness has its roots in Buddhism, okay? And in Buddhism, they talk a lot about beginner's mind. And let me just say that when I talk about Buddhism, I don't talk about it like, I'm not selling it like it's a religion. It has a lot of tools on how to manage the mind. So we're extracting these, almost psychology tools that are found in Buddhist texts. And so beginner's mind is simply looking at a problem, a situation, a person with complete naivete. So you can imagine the way a child looks at, I have a water bottle here, the way a child looks at a water bottle. They really investigate it, look at the top, look at the size, look at the color, turn it upside down, try to dump it out, try to unscrew it. We don't do that with our things. I assume it's my water bottle, it opens and closes this way, it's completely utilitarian, and it's part of my patterning. Beginner's mind is really looking at something with no assumptions made. And so one of the ways you can use this beginner's mind attitude is with your trigger. Right? If we assume that same old trigger that you think is, let's say, again, performance review. If you think every year the performance review is going to go the same way and you're stressing out about it the night before, let's flip it the other way. Let's take a beginner's mind to it and just assume You've never been in this situation. What's going to happen? There can be complete openness to what's going to happen in the performance review if you kind of approach it with a mindful attitude. Another skill we develop in practice is curiosity. Okay, again, thinking about like a child, the way the child looks at something, they don't already know, right? Adults kind of assume we assume that we know all these things. And so rather than jumping to a conclusion, rather than assuming that we know what it is, we approach things with curiosity. And I call it, I like to think about it this way, like with the mind of an artist. So if I were to look at this water bottle, like what colors do I see? What shapes do I see? How would an artist replicate this? They really have to look at it in, ways they haven't looked at it before, or with different dimensions. Another skill we develop in practice is body awareness. So as I mentioned on the YouTube channel, there's a body awareness meditation. But learning how to develop conscious relaxation, even in the midst of a stressful situation, is a really useful tool. So we could be in a traffic jam, I could slam on my brakes, and then everything tenses, right? If I've been practicing my relaxation training, if I've been noticing my body tension, I might be able to, in that moment, shake out my elbows, let my shoulders drop, sit up a little straighter, take a couple deep breaths. So we can release body tension right in the moment of stress, and that can decrease, lessen the intensity of a stress reactivity cycle. And the last one is depersonalization, and this is a big topic, probably spend a whole hour talking about, but there's this attachment that we have to our experience, what we know, what we have. And so we might hold on too tightly to what's going on around us. And so mindfulness actually separates ourselves from our experience. So a really great example of how this shows up is I am sick, or my body is experiencing sickness, right? I am sick, or my body is experiencing sickness. I mean, the truth of the situation is my body is experiencing sickness, right? And the sickness comes and goes, and it's not a part of me. Even if it's a disease, it's not a part of me. Depersonalizing it means that I'm not holding on too tightly to it. Personally, I feel like complaining sometimes personalizes it a lot. When I say, this is my problem, and this is my problem, I'm going to complain about it, and this is all about me, Depersonalizing, what happens in meditation is that we realize there's spaciousness between what we're experiencing inside and what's actually happening outside of us. So there's an experience inside, our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions, and then there's the situation outside of us. When we personalize it, there's just a really strong link that joins those two. Again, feel free to ask questions. This is a little bit of a teaser for the next time, in the sense that I don't know if we're going to get too much into the skills this class, but I do want you, and we can do the next slide, I do want you to take some of these home, okay? And do you mind if we do an exercise together? I didn't actually put a slide in there, but I think let's do a little exercise together. So one of the best exercises that breaks that habit of reaction, that either you could do in the moment of feeling stress reactivity, or you could do outside of it to create some kind of self-care around a stressful event or a situation. And this is using your senses. It's drawing all of your senses that usually focus outward on what's going on around us back into our body and back into what's going on inside of us. So if you're joining at your home office, your home base, just put aside, if you're doing anything else, I know we're like creatures of multitasking. So if you're doing anything else, just put it aside and just place your feet flat on the floor, close your eyes. Let your hands rest in your lap. And we're going to do a little body tension exercise. So it can be hard sometimes to know what tension feels like if we're never aware of it. So we're going to start here by tensing the face. So I want you to furrow your eyebrows, squeeze towards the center. I want you to lift your nose. I want you to tense your lips. So almost as though you're trying to bring all of the facial muscles into one point at the center of the face. Really tense everything up. Clench your teeth, and then release. And then do that one more time, squeezing the eyebrows, the forehead, squeezing the eyes tight, bringing the nose up, lips up, squeezing everything really tight, big breath, and then out, release the tension of the face. And then let's do that with our arms. So kind of drop the arms by the sides or either by the sides of the chair or the sides of the body. And I want you to squeeze the hands into fists, tense the arm muscles, tense the shoulders, squeeze, 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 and then release. Okay, we'll do that one more time. Squeeze the hands, tense the arms, tense the shoulders, pull the shoulders up to the ears, squeeze, 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 and release. And then with the hands in the lap, just notice. Notice anything going on for you physically right now, any areas of tension, areas of sensation. And then let your attention move to one sensation you're feeling. It could be tingling, pain, it could be warmth or cool, it could be movement or freedom. And just notice there. And then notice your experience right now of lingering taste in the mouth. Notice any thoughts or emotions going on in reaction to that lingering taste. Then notice any smells around you. Notice any thoughts or emotions going on in reaction to that smell. And then notice the play of light and dark behind the eyelids. Notice thoughts and emotions in regard to that sense. And then notice sounds around you. It might be sounds of the room or just outside. Focus on one sound, and then move your attention to another sound. Listening for different pitches, for sounds that come and go. And see if you can draw your attention to some internal sounds. So can you feel or hear the heartbeat? Can you feel or hear breathing? Or digestive noises? And then let the focus on your sensory experience just go. And when you're ready, just tuck the chin and blink the eyes open. And just notice how you feel. Okay, Okay, so that's one technique, just doing kind of a mindful check-in using your senses, your sensory experience, that can get you out of a stressed out cycle and into a relaxed response cycle. So this weekend, here's your assignment. Decide now or before you end your day of a trigger that you anticipate this weekend. Okay? And let's try to choose a mild thing, not a crazy thing. Okay? And make a conscious decision now to test one of these techniques. Okay, so you may need to go to the website and try out one of those, or maybe one of them piqued your interest that we tried today. And then ask yourself where you might be able to interrupt the cycle and which technique may support you to create an interruption. Okay, so Sarah's going to be sending out a survey to kind of gauge how that went for you and help inform potentially the next webinar or some future sessions we have planned. Do you want me to talk about the YouTube site?
Well, so thank you so much. I mean, I'm like very relaxed right now. So if I'm not able to, formulate my sentences appropriately, I apologize. But thank you so much. That was awesome. And as Marla said, this was part 1. We are going to be doing part 2 on June 7th at 1:30 Eastern time. Same bat time, same bat channel, where we're going to really try to dig a little bit more into this. Within 24 hours, you should be receiving a survey directly from the webinar site. This is just going to help us understand if there are any questions. I did have one person comment that they did see the crudes and they loved it. So thank you, Jennifer, for that.
So you might understand.
Exactly.
Like survival, fight, flight, and freeze.
Exactly. And on the slide here, you see some of the references and resources. So if you would like me to send that to anybody, I can. Also, this webinar has been recorded and will be posted onto the YouTube site. What I would like to do very briefly is I'm hoping that everybody has received the May Wellness newsletter, the May happenings. It came from the Gatehouse Media Wellness site. And gosh darn it, I don't think, oh no, Lori, can you see the YouTube site on the webinar? You can?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure we're using multiple screens here so I just wanted to make sure that everybody has a chance to see the YouTube site that we have been referencing. So there is a link to that in the May newsletter. This is a great site. We're going to be trying to put a lot of information out here, but here's where the practice videos are that Marla was referencing. And one of the reasons we did this is feedback that we got from people was nobody's got time to meditate. I think everybody thinks when they think of meditation, and I don't know if you run into this, Marla, they think meditation means that you have to sit in a dark room and be quiet for half an hour and that's that. These videos are all, there's a little bit of intro, so that takes up a couple minutes, but the practice itself is about 5 minutes. And it really gives you some different areas where you can practice some of this. So one of them is practicing meditation while walking. There is, just being in your chair. So you don't have to be any place, darkened room, incense filled, anything like that. It's just taking some time just to sort of slow down and take a time out, and this gives you an idea of how to do that. So with that being said, I do not see any questions at this time, so I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. The registration information has gone out in the May newsletter for the June 7th one. Also, keep an eye out. I'll put a plug in for Thriving Thursday. We're going to be doing a webinar on reading nutrition labels, so that should be fun. And with that, again, thank everybody for your time, and
Thank
I
you.
hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care.